Let's kick off our webinar. First of all, welcome. This webinar will be about data accuracy and how it impacts automation return on investment. And today, with you, we will me and Gonçalo will be your guests for this webinar. I am the founder and CEO of Doc Digitizer. Gonçalo is my partner and Chief AI Officer at Doc Digitizer. You have there our email, so feel free after the webinar if you want to drop us a line with questions or comments or feedback on this webinar, feel free to do it. The agenda for today will cover these several topics. We will start by discussing the main trends in terms of automation and their underlying opportunities. We will detail how typically an automation process is designed and the main aspects of this process. Then we will talk about unstructured data and how it is impacting right now several automation initiatives. How data capture is used and may be used to overcome some of these unstructured data limitations. And also, from that point on, we will discuss how automation and accuracy can be hand in hand or not. Let's see, and how to reach 100% accuracy. That, at the end of the day, is what everybody wants. So I'd like to start by talking a little bit about the landscape in terms of automation and some really interesting statistics that Gartner is launching right now. They surveyed a lot of CIOs worldwide and with the question around what were their goals or what are their goals in terms of automation initiatives. And the interesting thing is that there are three main topics here. First of all, they want to automate to increase process quality. Then to speed up the execution of processes, and finally to increase employee productivity. And within each main goal, there are sub goals. You see here that improving data quality is very important to reduce human errors, to increase process resilience when it comes to process quality. When it comes to speed of execution, you have here the decrease of completion time of a task, reduce the time spent and the human error, decrease the steps within a process, minimize the handoffs between people in the process, and increase, of course, availability. All of these sub goals are very much aligned to the topic that we will cover right now in terms of data quality and how data quality may impact automation. What is important to notice is that 86% of the organizations are already implementing automation. And we are seeing a huge trend in terms of robot process automation, but that is just one of the forms that automation can take. We are talking about also process mining, even HyperAutomation. These trends are growing a lot in the market. Nevertheless, only 58% of the organizations surveyed by Gartner say that they are able to achieve their expected outcomes when it comes to their automation efforts, which is pretty much strange. Because there is a lot of investment right now in this, but there seems to be a catch here because the results of automation are not appearing at the pace of investment. So I will ask Gonçalo to describe a little bit about the structure of process automation, so we can drill down on why 56% of the companies are not able to reach this. Gonçalo.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. This is a very simple picture of what is a process. So a process has inputs, then you apply some business rules, you run some decisions. It can be in parallel or in sequential from business rules, and then you have the process output. So a process simply is just that receives information, processes that information, and delivers an output. Okay, is quite as simple as that, or it can be as complex as that. So the takeaway here is you need inputs, you need information. A process cannot run without information. So in order to process a meaningful output, it requires meaningful inputs. So, João, can you go for the next slide? So, what happens if the information is not reliable? Okay, and actually, in the vast majority of cases, when we are discussing processes and automation, it's a given that the information is always correct. So, no one asks along the way, what if the bank account got mixed up across systems, or if the name got mixed up, or if the invoice amount is not right anymore. So actually, when digital transformation officers are discussing processes and redoing processes, it's quite kind of a given then that all information is correct, or on the other hand, maybe we already know that the information is not correct, and then there is a project for data quality or data transformation or whatever. But in vast majority of cases, we start discussing processes in an abstract way with the premise that all information is correct. Now, what happens is if it's not reliable, then the process cannot run. And this is as simple as that. So if there is kind of a percentage, even a very small percentage of the data that is not correct, then the whole process cannot run. And the reason for this is that the cost of a failure in a process, it can be 100 times or 10,000 times the cost of running a flawless task. So because the cost of failure is so huge, we cannot automate processes that run off kind of right information. Back to you, João.
Great. And the main reason why the information may not be reliable is due to the fact that 80% of the information that is daily exchange between companies isn't structured. And this is somehow not that intuitive because everything now is connected digitally, and there are a lot of different digital communication channels. So we assume most of the times that we are exchanging digital information, and somehow, if it is digital, it is structured. But it's not that. It's not. Most of the times, it's not that. We receive emails, we receive images, photos, videos, a lot of information that, although is digital, is not unstructured. Is not structured. Is unstructured. And since data is really the fuel for automation, it's key to be provided as an input for the automation. The unstructured information really has a lot of challenge in the way we deal with this. So every time we receive an email, it's very hard to build an automation process to process that email, because the email itself is text, is readable for a human, but is not prepared to be read by a machine. Okay. The really strange thing of this is that this number is in fact growing 50 to 65% per year. So the amount of unstructured information that is daily exchanged is growing a lot. And automation initiatives are failing most of the times because most of the processes end up relying one way or another on this kind of information. And
João,
please, please.
can I ask you something? But if having structured information is so much important, why don't we build systems that only exchange information via APIs in a structured way?
There are several reasons for that. First of all, because the complexity of doing that is huge. We have not only different data schemas, different data models, different use cases, but we also have different layers of security that might not be possible to do that in scale. And there's a lot of systems nowadays. The software stack of a company is composed by a set of very different softwares that don't even connect with each other. So this is the first reason. But I think the most relevant one is the fact that if we connect everything via APIs, it starts to become very fuzzy for the humans of the organization, the people on the organization, to control the process, which is also important for companies to have some kind of control, of visibility. So this leads to the situation where humans are communicating to each other via digital channel using their language, but then we need to feed up we need to streamline part of this information to the software systems that the organization use. And when it comes to streamline this information, we have a lot of challenge there, because companies are paying a productivity tax to do this, because they need what we call a human in the loop. They need employees, back office teams, to really transform this human readable content into structured data, and this is mostly done by copy pasting or looking at the document and typing the right information. And we do it daily on our day-to-day job. We use as input documents, we use as input emails, and we do it over and over again to streamline information to our CRM, to our RP, to our document management system, and this is very common. In fact, you see here some of the main stats on this. 30% of the employee time, in particular when it comes to administrative tasks, is data entry, which is a huge percentage of time. 75% of the companies are trying to automate, but as we told you previously, they are failing because most of the processes have this challenge here. And we estimate that there's a huge amount of money that is being wasted in supporting over and over again daily this kind of activities, which is a huge handicap for companies and for digital transformation, because once again, you can only transform your company digitally if you have access to structured data. So when it comes to addressing this problem, typically there are softwares that are called data capture solutions, and these data capture solutions rely on this idea that if I implement a data capture solution, I'll be able to convert this human readable content into structured data. And this is pretty much what was called an OCR. Nowadays it's called data capture. There are other names for this: intelligence document processing or cognitive data capture. But in a nutshell, they all have this four main steps to convert data. So these are like data converter softwares, where you have the information that is arriving to the organization, typically in the form of documents. Then you apply you process those documents using a set of configurations, and you have what it's called unvalidated data, which means that the machine itself will try to interpret the document, and it will come up with predictions for the values, for the fields that you need to have as an input to your process. And then there's a step that is called data validation, where you need to have humans there validating the data to be sure that the data is correct. And only after that you'll be able to streamline the information so it can be integrated within your software. So these are the four main steps on a data capture pipeline.
João, can you tell me if it's usual to completely skip or scratch the data validation? Is that possible?
Most of the cases is not. Okay, so there might be some use cases where you are comfortable with having some degree of error, but let's look at the most relevant processes within our organization, like accounts payable, HR. Within banks, you have QIC. Within insurance, you have claims processes. In those kinds of processes, you cannot miss, because the cost of an error is huge. You may be transferring X amount of money to the wrong account. You may be refunding a claim that is not valid. You might be paying your supplier different amounts to the one that was invoiced. So most of the times companies are very keen on this. They need to have data validation because they need to have this quality firewall in the data, so they can ensure that they only streamline correct data to their software. There is also another problem on this, is the cost of handling an error. So if you streamline errors to your RP, let's say, the cost of fixing up that error is huge. So not having the data validation part will leave you in a situation where a single error might jeopardize the full return on investment, the full automation, the full optimization that you are getting from a data capture, just because you will spend a lot of time fixing up that error. So data validation is in fact one of the major steps to ensure that we only streamline correct data. But when it comes to data validation and data capture, most of the times we see a lot of vendors talking about accuracy. So we assume that by having more accuracy, we will have less data validation, and therefore we will have less people involved in the process. The process will become more scalable and more optimized. So there's a lot of and if you Google like OCR or data capture, you'll find a lot of blog posts around accuracy, the best machine learning model, how reaching 95% accuracy is very, very good, because we tend to think that if you reach 95% accuracy, that will translate into a 95% automation of the process. And this seemed very intuitive at the first place, but when we start to drill down on this concept, that is not the case. Okay, so what you are seeing here is a very practical example of this. It's a really nice illustration. You have here 100 invoices with a lot of different layouts and so from completely different suppliers. And let's say that I have a data capture solution that was with the state-of-the-art machine learning models already pre-trained and with a lot of training with my own invoices. And let's say that I have on average 95% accuracy, which is when you look at the landscape of data capture, 95% is like a very, very, very good number. What this means in practice is that 5 out of these 100 documents will have an error. And when you look at this pile of documents and think about this, the only way to detect which 5% have errors is to really look at everyone, at every document, which leads to a very strange situation. That is, if I compare the cost the need for humans, the lead time of having 70% accuracy, 20 out of 100, or having 95%, 5 in 100, the time it will take to validate the data will be roughly the same. And so the question is this really an accuracy game? Is accuracy leading to automation? By having more accuracy, will I be able to save more time, to be more efficient in the way I do the process? And the answer is most of the times no. The underlying reason for this is related to the fact that the data capture is not able most of the times to segment the documents with errors from the documents that have not that are correct. And if these two are mixed, the only way for me to understand the errors is to validate everything, which is really an overhead on the process. And this is precisely the reason why, when we look at the cost of implementing a data capture solution, we end up with this breakdown. So roughly you pay 15% in the OCR or data capture license, and typically this is charged by page, let's say. Then you have a 30% on setup, and by setup I mean it can be template configurations, so layouts for each type of document. It might be to train a model, to get the data schema, to get the data set, to clean the data set, to train the model with the data set, and this accounts for roughly 30%. But the major cost on this is in fact the data validation process and the data validation team. That accounts for 55% of the total cost of ownership of these solutions. So in fact, this is the part of the process which is more impacted by the costs. It also is the part that induces more lead time, more errors, and of course it's the less scalable one when it comes to the way you structure a data capture.
João, I'm guessing that we have put there OCR license, but it can be a SaaS subscription services or whatever. So it's just the access to the automated extraction engine. I'm guessing.
Yeah, you are guessing right. And the reason why we break this up into these three groups is because when we are looking, and when people are looking for data capture solutions, they typically only look at this part on the OCR license or the software as a service fee, because this is the most is presented as the most relevant one. But then what these vendors are doing is basically shifting the burden of data validation to the customer. And at the end, it will be very, very difficult, even for the customer, to estimate the number of people they need to support the operation, which is not really clear up front. And in fact, and if we go back to the previous slide, it will not be that much impacted by accuracy. So let's say that you reach 70% accuracy, you will spend most of the times you'll spend an equal amount of money if you reach 95% accuracy. Okay. The reason why this happened, and I'm showcasing here a video of a very standard OCR or data capture revision interface, is that when you present the customer the document alongside with the data, you will easily understand that typing it by hand or looking if to detect any errors on the information will be roughly the same. So going through every single field and looking at the right, looking at the left for every single document, it's a huge inefficient process and leads to a lot of time spent on this. You see there are green fields and yellow fields and some warnings. Those are like rules that you can apply to simplify this, but at the end of the day, most of the times you need to go through every single field to make sure that the information is really correct. And let's not forget that for most fields you cannot even do arithmetic rules to validate. So you need to really look to each document.
So it's like what we are saying is like, I cannot validate that an email is right. I can validate that it has the right structure, but if it has the wrong characters, I'm inputting the right email or the wrong email or wrong telephone number. And for those, there are not CRC rules or redundancy check rules that can provide me an assurance that the information is correct. Is that
Precisely.
what you are saying?
Precisely. And if you present to an average user, if you present the document on the left and the fields on the right, even if some of the fields are green, the tendency is to review everything. So you are not really skipping any field on this validation, okay? And of course, this over thousands and thousands of documents, this accounts for a lot of money and inefficient, okay? So in a nutshell, we may say that either you reach 100% accuracy or anything else is a little bit useless, okay? Because it will not impact that much your efficiency. And I have here some really nice examples. So would you ever buy a plane ticket if 5% of all planes crashed? Or what happens if a bank transfers the wrong amount just 5% of the times? So as you see here, this is the type of situations and the type of processes where you need to have assurance that the quality is correct, okay? And there's some takeaways on this that are very important. First of all, any OCR or data capture solutions are most of the times are not able to ensure you that they deliver 100% accurate data. So they delegate that into the customer that has to build their own team, their own data validation team. And once again, 55% of the cost is there. And also, another takeaway is that having 60% accuracy, 95% accuracy will not reduce that much the cost or the need for a human in the loop. And of course, you may say that we reach 95% accuracy, but that measure is only done to the past, which means that over time you may encounter different documents, different formats that were not tested, that were not trained, and therefore you cannot assume that 95% will be your baseline because it will vary over time, okay? This is a very nice graph that shows the impact of accuracy in the data validation costs. So this means that if you don't reach 100% accuracy, all the rest, all the accuracy levels that you have below that will roughly take you the same time and the same money to validate, okay? And this is a huge insight when it comes to evaluating a data capture solution, because we tend to stick with the accuracy game and forget that we will not be able to streamline errors to the process, because if we streamline errors to the process, the cost of fixing the problem after will be much more significant than if we review the data beforehand. So reaching that conclusion also concludes our webinar for today. And I want to invite you to join our next webinar, where we will talk about how to really automate these processes. So how to unlock HyperAutomation on these complex and structured processes, and talk about how our platform, how Doc Digital is able to deliver you 100% accurate data with no setup involved, with a full plug and play API that is full pay per use. So a very nice way of, and going back to this slide, to ensure that you don't have any data validation effort from your side, and that you are able to streamline without any errors, any information from any document, from any email, from any photo to your software with the two API calls. So, Gonçalo, do you want to close this webinar?
Yes, sure. So thank you very much for all to be here with us. We will be running a series of webinars like this. Just try to demystify all these data capture space and some myths. Keep up with us in this season 1 of webinars. It was great to have all of you here. Thank you.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel, and also have a look at our blog that have a lot of information around this, and see you next time for the next webinar.